Hello, everyone. One of the questions that I was asked was how come we don't have any inserts into davening during this period of mourning each year? After all, a month before Rosh Hashanah, we add in L'David Hashem Ori, a psalm from the book of Psalms, into our services. We add in various things that have to do with the high holidays, Avinu Malkeinu, for example, and not to mention inserts into the Amidah itself. How come when it comes to the 9 days, we don't add anything? It's like regular davening. Everything's the same. The only thing that's not the same is everything outside of davening, but davening remains the same. I would like to suggest the following reason. We have a big problem, and that is that we expect that there be a Tisha B'Av, which is a day of mourning and fasting every year. And 3 weeks before starts the 3 weeks, and 9 days before it starts the 9 days, and it's in our calendar, and we expect it every year. Indeed, that's why it's called Avelut Yeshana, old Avelos that we're used to. But that's not the way it's going to be. God willing, there will be a time where these days will turn into days of feasting, not days of fasting. Zechariah the prophet promised us that these days will turn into, and I quote, Sason v'simcha v'yamim tovim, no more and no less. From this perspective, we don't add things into davening because davening is eternal. And davening is what we're going to do even when Mashiach comes. Obviously, we'll have to make changes when things that we ask for are no longer relevant. But quite frankly, davening is eternal, and we don't put in things there that will make it look permanent. There's a beautiful story that the Slonim Rebbe in Netivot Shalom records. And that is that a Jew should never make his peace without having a Beit HaMikdash. You should never get used to it. And then he brings the story that someone came to him and gave a long, long history of all his problems, as you do when you go to a Hasidic Rebbe. And the Rebbe's listening and listening and listening, and finally he says, and the fact that this morning the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice, was not brought, that doesn't bother you? In other words, the Jew is talking about everything that's not right, but one of the many things was not having a temple in Yerushalayim. The worst thing we can do during this war is to get used to it. Is to get used to having a state of war and people being killed and maimed and injured and having hostages in captivity. We don't get used to things. And one of the ways to get used to it is just to very simply add it into your davening. So dafka we don't. We leave it out of davening to say all of this is temporary.